Have you ever looked at your grown child and wondered, do they still need me the way they used to? Or maybe you've felt the sting of silence after you called, sent a message, or offered help, only to be met with distance. You're not alone. Many parents over 60 feel like their role is starting to fade, like their presence isn't as welcomed as it once was. And that can feel confusing, even heartbreaking. You spent decades caring for them. You were there through every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every big decision. You poured your energy, your time, your love into raising them, and now what? They barely call, they seem too busy. Or worse, when you do try to be there for them, it feels like you're in the way. So let's talk about something that's not often said out loud, but it needs to be, especially as we get older and start redefining our role in our children's lives. Sometimes the most powerful and loving thing you can do for your kids is to leave them alone. Now, I don't mean abandon them. I don't mean shut the door on your relationship. What I mean is giving them the space to grow, struggle, rise, and become fully who they are, without us constantly reaching in to fix, guide, or even comfort. And yes, that might feel counterintuitive at first. But stay with me. Because once we understand why this matters, we start to see that letting go isn't a loss, it's a gift. Let me ask you something. Do you remember the first time your child insisted they could do something on their own? Maybe it was tying their shoes, or riding a bike, or walking into school without you. They were nervous, you were nervous, but you let them go. You stepped back, you let them fall. And even if it broke your heart a little, you knew that was part of their growth. Well, here's the truth no one tells us. That same process happens again when they become adults. They need to fall a few more times. But this time, it's emotional, financial, relational, and our instinct is still the same. We want to protect them. We want to cushion the fall. But what if that protection is actually holding them back? When your child becomes an adult, they're entering a new stage of identity. They're learning how to be a partner, a parent, a provider, a person. And just like before, they need space to figure it out. When we're constantly stepping in with suggestions, or asking for updates, or showing up with solutions they didn't ask for, it can feel to them like we don't trust them. Like we're still holding on to the role of rescuer, when what they really need is someone who believes they can handle life on their own. I know how deeply rooted our love is. It's the kind that doesn't sleep, that wakes up worrying, that remembers birthdays before they do. But real love, mature love, also knows when to step back. And stepping back doesn't mean we don't care. It means we respect their path enough to stop controlling the direction. Sometimes we confuse closeness with involvement. We think, if I'm not helping, if I'm not giving advice, if I'm not checking in all the time, then I'm being a bad parent. But let me tell you, emotional independence is one of the greatest gifts we can give our adult children. It tells them, you've got this, I believe in you, you're capable. And when they do stumble, when life hits them hard, that's when your presence, your quiet steadiness will mean the most. Not because you rushed in and took over, but because you let them know they were never alone, but they were always free. There's another reason this space matters, and it has to do with something no one likes to talk about: resentment. Yes, even from the kids we love. Sometimes when we're always offering help or inserting ourselves into their lives, it can start to feel like pressure. Even if our intentions are good, they might feel suffocated. And when people feel smothered, they pull away. They call less. They visit less. They stop sharing the deep stuff. And then we're left wondering what went wrong. We say, but I only wanted to help. And it's true, but sometimes help feels like control. And no one, not even our children, wants to feel controlled in their adult life. I remember talking to a friend not long ago. She's 68, sharp as ever, full of warmth. Her daughter had recently gotten married and moved across the country. At first, they talked every few days, but then it became once a week, then once a month. And every time my friend called, she could hear the stress in her daughter's voice. So finally one day she said, "Honey, I'm going to stop calling every week. I love you, and I'm here when you need me. But I think you need some space to just live your life." Her daughter cried, not out of anger, but relief. She said, "Thank you, Mom. I love you so much, but I need to figure some things out on my own right now." And from that moment on, their relationship actually deepened. When they did talk, it was honest. It wasn't out of obligation, it was out of desire. That's the power of letting go, not to disconnect, but to reconnect on healthier terms. And here's something else to consider. When we learn to step back, we get our own life back, too. Think about it. For years, maybe decades, your days revolved around your children, their schedules, their problems, their dreams. But what about yours? What about the parts of you that got set aside? Giving your adult kids space also gives you space. Space to explore, to rest, to grow in your own way. Maybe that's starting a hobby, picking up that book you've been meaning to read, joining a walking group, volunteering, or simply learning how to enjoy your own company again. It's not selfish, it's healthy. Your identity doesn't end at being a parent. It expands beyond it. And when your kids see you thriving in your own life, it teaches them something powerful. That growing older doesn't mean becoming smaller. It means becoming fuller. So many parents think love means being constantly available, always giving, never stepping away. But what if true love, the kind that lasts, the kind that grows, is about trust? Trust in them, trust in yourself. Trust that the bond you built is strong enough to survive a little distance. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't saying yes. It's saying, "I trust you enough to let go." And even if they don't say it out loud, your adult kids need that. They need the room to rise, to make mistakes, to figure things out without always feeling like someone is looking over their shoulder. Your silence doesn't mean absence. It means faith. And that faith becomes a quiet kind of support they'll feel, even when you're not around. You see, your job now isn't to raise them. It's to witness them, to cheer them on from a little further back, to offer love, not interference, to give advice only when asked, and to let your presence be one of peace, not pressure. Because in the end, that's what we all want, for our kids to become their fullest selves. And sometimes, that starts with us taking a gentle step back so they can take their own steps forward. Now, stepping back doesn't mean you disappear. It doesn't mean you stop caring or that you suddenly detach from your family. It means you learn how to love from a distance that honors both your heart and theirs. And that kind of love, quiet, respectful, unconditional, is often the most powerful kind there is. Let's talk about another reason your kids need that space. And it has to do with something we don't often associate with aging: growth. You see, our kids are still growing, even in their 30s, 40s, and beyond. Life keeps testing them through marriage, parenting, careers, finances, health. They're building their own identity as adults. And if we're constantly in the picture, always solving, always offering a plan B, they may not fully grow into themselves. Because part of growing up, no matter what age, is learning how to carry your own weight. It's not always easy to watch. When we see them struggling, our instinct says, step in, fix it, make it better. But when we do that, we're not just helping. We might be holding them back from developing resilience. That grit, that confidence that says, I made it through this and I did it myself. They only get that by going through it, not around it. Not with a safety net under every step. Sometimes our comfort becomes their crutch. And what starts as love can unintentionally turn into overprotection. We tell ourselves we're doing it for their sake. But are we? Or are we doing it because we can't stand the discomfort of seeing them struggle? Now, don't get me wrong, there are moments when stepping in is necessary. Emergencies, crises, real danger. But outside of that, stepping back gives them the opportunity to build the emotional muscles they'll need for the rest of their lives. And it tells them something deeply empowering. I believe you can handle this. I once spoke to a man in his early 40s who said, "I love my parents, but I feel like they've never really trusted me to figure things out. Every time I make a decision, they second guess it. Every time I succeed, they say I got lucky. Every time I struggle, they try to solve it for me, even when I don't ask. And I get it, it comes from love. But it also makes me feel like I'm still a child." That broke my heart a little. Not because his parents were bad people, but because they hadn't realized that their love, expressed in constant interference, was sending the wrong message. We don't trust you to live your own life. And if we're being honest, that can also strain our connection with them. Because when your kids feel like they're being monitored, managed, or subtly controlled, they stop showing you their full selves. They edit, they avoid. They keep you at arm's length. Not because they don't love you, but because they don't feel fully free around you. Now let's flip the mirror for a moment. Have you ever felt invisible to your own kids? Like they only reach out when they need something? Like your advice gets brushed off? Or like you're suddenly the one being parented? That's another hard part of this stage of life. The roles begin to shift. And if we're not careful, we can start trying to reclaim authority in ways that don't actually serve us or them. Sometimes we try to give advice because we want to feel useful. We want to be needed again. But usefulness isn't the same as connection. And sometimes the way back to deep, meaningful connection is through letting go of control and embracing curiosity instead. Instead of saying, "Here's what I think you should do," we say, "What are you thinking about doing?" Instead of jumping in with solutions, we ask, "How can I support you in this?" Instead of correcting, we listen. That shift can open doors you didn't even know were closed. It creates space for your child to speak, to share, to invite you into their world. Not because they have to, but because they want to. And let me tell you something else that's incredibly important. When you leave your adult kids alone to live their lives, you model something they deeply need: how to age with grace. Yes, they're watching you, even if they don't say it. They're watching how you handle this new chapter. They're learning how to set boundaries, how to honor personal space, how to care without controlling, because they see you doing it. And that might become the example they carry into their own parenting one day. When you let them go, you're also teaching them how to let their kids go someday. You're setting a pattern that breaks the cycle of control, pressure, and emotional guilt that so many families unknowingly pass down. And here's a truth we rarely talk about, but we should. Letting your kids be independent also helps them come back to you with more love, not less. When they don't feel pressured, when they don't feel judged, when they don't feel managed, they're more likely to pick up the phone and call. They're more likely to visit. They're more likely to share the parts of life that matter, because it's on their terms, not yours. Love that is freely given is love that is freely returned. One of the most beautiful things I ever witnessed was an older gentleman at a coffee shop reading a letter from his daughter. He looked like he was in his 70s, with tired eyes and a soft smile. The letter said something like, "Thank you for always letting me figure things out, even when you probably wanted to stop me. I used to think you didn't care. But now I see it was the deepest care of all." He folded it up and just sat there for a while. You could tell that letter meant more to him than anything money could buy. And I imagine it didn't come after a lifetime of fixing or fussing. It came after a lifetime of quiet strength, of stepping back, of loving from a respectful distance. That's the love your kids need now. The kind that sees them. The kind that supports without suffocating. The kind that trusts them enough to let them stumble, and trusts yourself enough to know that's okay. This stage of life is full of paradoxes. We're older, wiser, and yet often learning new things about love, boundaries, and identity all over again. And the truth is, you can be deeply involved in your child's life without being deeply entangled in their choices. You can be available without being intrusive. You can care without carrying it all. So many parents I speak to say, "I just want to be close to my kids." And I always say, then give them space. It sounds backwards, but it works. When you respect someone's boundaries, they feel safe. And when someone feels safe around you, they want to come closer. That closeness might not look like daily phone calls or weekly visits. It might be quiet, infrequent, or unexpected. But it will be real, it will be genuine, and it will be enough. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't letting go. It's staying gone, especially when you're used to being the anchor, the safety net, the person they turn to when things got messy. That role doesn't fade easily, not after years, decades even, of being the foundation. And so when the calls slow down or the updates become fewer, you might find yourself wondering, have I done something wrong? The silence can be deafening. But here's the thing. Sometimes silence isn't distance. It's development. You've done the groundwork. You've planted the seeds. Now it's their time to grow. And growing takes time, energy, and yes, solitude. This part of life isn't about losing your children. It's about watching them become. And believe it or not, they need room to do that, without constant echoes from the past reminding them who they used to be. Many adult children aren't just building careers and families, they're also rebuilding their identities. They're unpacking their childhoods, understanding their wounds, learning how to break cycles that may have unknowingly started generations ago. And here's a truth that's hard but healing. Sometimes they need to process their relationship with you, without you in the room. Not because they're angry or ungrateful, but because self-reflection often happens best in peace. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It means they're trying to understand how to love you in a way that's real, not rehearsed. And in that process, space is sacred. There's a kind of strength in staying present from a distance. It's the strength to resist the urge to chase, to demand, to guilt trip. It's the strength to say, I'm here, but I trust your path. And that silent trust, that's what adult children remember when the dust settles. That's what they come back to when they're ready. It might not look the way you hoped. It might not be daily dinners or weekend visits, but it could be a quiet phone call on a Tuesday night, where they open up in ways they never did before. It could be a text that simply says, "Thank you for giving me space." Or it could be a moment years from now when they look at their own children and say, "This is how my parent loved me best, by letting me go." You are not forgotten. You are not cast aside. You are being honored, just not always in the ways you expect. And here's a piece of wisdom worth holding close. Parenting doesn't end when your child turns 18 or 25 or even 40. It transforms. Your job now isn't to shape them, it's to support them by trusting in who they are. And that means giving them permission to be fully themselves, even if that self looks different from the one you imagined. Letting go also creates space for something new between you, a friendship. Not one where you're peers, but one where mutual respect replaces instruction, where curiosity replaces control, where stories replace supervision. That's when the relationship becomes lighter, richer, freer. And for you, this space you've created, it's not empty, it's open. Open for your own growth, open for joy, open for rediscovering parts of yourself that were buried under years of parenting and responsibility. Maybe you start painting again, or you finally go on that trip. Maybe you reconnect with old friends, or take up yoga, or just sit in your garden every morning with a cup of coffee and a calm heart. Because when you let go of carrying them, you finally remember how to carry you. And you deserve that. You deserve to feel peace in your own life, not just pride in theirs. One woman I spoke to recently, she's 72, retired, and lives alone, told me that after her daughter moved across the country, she cried every night for weeks. Not because she didn't want her daughter to live her life, but because she wasn't sure who she was anymore, without the constant need to check in, to help, to worry. But one day, she got up, looked in the mirror, and said, "I raised a good person. Now it's time to raise myself." She started writing poetry, joined a local book club, took her first solo trip. And months later, her daughter called and said, "Mom, you sound so happy. I love hearing this version of you." That's what letting go can do. It doesn't create distance, it creates depth. And sometimes it takes space to find that. Now I know not every relationship is picture perfect. Some of you may have adult children who are distant in ways that feel cold, even hurtful. Maybe there are old wounds between you, miscommunications that were never resolved. Maybe you've tried everything, calls, texts, invitations, and it feels like the door just won't open. That's a different kind of pain. It's the pain of loving someone who doesn't, or can't, show love back right now. And in those cases, leaving them alone isn't just loving, it's self-preserving. You can't heal someone who isn't ready. You can't force closeness from someone who needs distance to feel safe. And you can't build a bridge when the other side isn't willing to meet you halfway. But even then, you're not powerless. You still get to choose peace. You still get to choose healing. You still get to live a full, meaningful life that isn't dependent on someone else's readiness. Because your worth? It's not defined by how often they call or visit or say thank you. Your worth is not a reflection of their capacity to love. Your worth is inherent. And if they ever come back, if the silence breaks, if the wall comes down, you'll be there. Not because you waited by the door, but because you never stopped loving them in your own quiet, respectful way. And if they don't, then you still win. Because you chose truth. You chose calm. You chose to stop pouring yourself into a well that never filled, and you started watering the garden of your own soul instead. So if your soul feels tired, if your heart is aching from trying too hard or waiting too long, just know this: stepping back isn't failure. It's wisdom, it's grace. And yes, it's love. The kind of love that says, "I see you, I trust you, and I release you." The kind of love that finally, after all these years, includes you. And that is what strong elderly life is all about. Choosing strength that comes from softness. Choosing peace over pressure. Choosing to live boldly, even when the world tells you to shrink. So if this message resonated with you today, I invite you to leave a comment. Share your story. You're not alone. There's a whole community here, learning how to live, love, and let go together. And if you found comfort or clarity in this video, please consider clicking like and subscribing to Strong Elderly Life for more conversations just like this one. Here's to living your truth. Here's to growing at every age. And here's to loving your children in a way that sets both of you free. You've done enough. You've loved enough. Now, it's time to live.